You reached the goal. You checked every box. So why does it still feel empty? I'm Jay, and this is Jay Within, because the harder you climb, the tighter it gets. Have you ever stopped to wonder why we celebrate exhaustion as if it were a trophy of honor? There's a razor-thin line between being productive and simply being consumed by a routine that leaves no room for what actually matters. When was the last time you felt truly present? Do you even remember? We've been conditioned to believe that the value of a life is measured by the sheer volume of hours we spend occupied. But the truth is, working hard is almost never synonymous with living well. In fact, more often than not, it's the exact opposite. The excess is just a mask for the void. Society handed us a beautifully illustrated instruction manual for success, and the first chapter was a lie. It promised that if we just pushed a little harder, stayed a little later, and sacrificed a little more of our sanity, we would eventually reach a sun-drenched plateau of peace. We were told that burnout was a badge of dignity, that if you weren't exhausted, you simply weren't trying hard enough. But look at us now. We're building monuments of productivity on top of the graveyards of our own presence. We've turned time, the very fabric of our existence, into a cold currency. When every vacant hour is treated as a wasted opportunity to produce, we stop inhabiting the present. We stop living in our own lives and start merely managing them. There is a glitch in the system. We've optimized ourselves so thoroughly that we become highly functional machines, but we've forgotten how to be vibrant humans. Machines don't love. Machines don't wonder. They only process. We've developed a sort of efficiency blindness. We can see a deadline 2 weeks away with perfect clarity, but we can't see the person sitting across the dinner table from us today. We've become masters of the distant future, but strangers to our own present. And when you try to process your life as if it were an office memo, your emotional hardware begins to fail. The problem with living at the edge of exhaustion is that the body and the mind always send the bill, and it's never cheap. We get used to chronic fatigue as if it were the background noise of our existence. But this hidden cost erodes things that money cannot buy back. We lose the capacity for genuine enthusiasm. We trade our depth for surface area. Think about the people you love. What do they get from you at the end of the day? They get the leftovers. They get the dregs of your energy, a sharp tongue and a silence that isn't peaceful, but depleted. You are there in body, but your mind is still held hostage by a spreadsheet or a pending email. I remember a moment of clarity that felt more like a collapse. I was looking at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop after a long night of achieving. The only light in the room was the cold, artificial blue glare from the monitor, casting long, lonely shadows against the wall. The silence of the room was deafening, making the hum of the cooling fan sound like a mechanical heart. My body felt like lead, a heavy, sinking weight in the chair that I could no longer ignore. My neck was stiff, my eyes were burning, and that deep, hollow ache in my chest told me that no amount of caffeine could fix this anymore. I had used work as a sophisticated form of escape. It's much easier to lose yourself in external demands than to face the silence and the questions that arise when you actually stop. The constant doing had become my shield. I was running because everyone else was running, and I felt guilty every time I slowed down. That guilt is the clearest sign that the glitch has taken over. We feel like criminals for resting, as if repose were a theft from the system. But rest is what keeps us human. I realized that night that I was buying the applause of strangers with the silence of my own heart. The point here isn't to suggest we stop working. Work is a vital part of our dignity, but it cannot be the whole. The shift begins when we understand that being productive is fundamentally different from being busy. Real life happens in the empty spaces. What would happen if we stopped measuring success by the volume of our output and started measuring it by the quality of our presence? It requires the courage to say no to the urgent so you can say yes to the important. The world will keep spinning. The demands will keep coming. You are the only person responsible for drawing the line. If you don't define what enough looks like for you, the world will define it for you. And the world's limit is your total exhaustion. When you slow down, the vision becomes clearer. You start to distinguish the essential from the noise. Maybe you don't need 10 more hours of work this week. Maybe you need 10 more hours of real life. Are you building a career or are you building a life? A career can be replaced in a week. The time you lost of yourself has no replacement. In the end, we have to decide what story we want to tell. Will the highlight be how much we produced or how much we actually showed up for the moments that mattered? Working hard is often a choice that feels inevitable, but living well is a conscious decision that requires the bravery to say enough. The world doesn't stop if you rest, but your life certainly passes you by if you don't. Success should not cost you your peace, nor your time with those you love. If the price of your productivity is your health and your joy, the cost is simply too high. Adjust the route. Take a breath. Remember that you are so much more than your labor. Life is what happens now, in the quiet interval between one task and the next. If this felt like a conversation you needed to have, subscribe. Let's keep walking through the mist together. See you within.